What does Trump's latest trade move mean for the US-Canada relationship? How will escalating tariffs impact both economies? President Donald Trump has announced a major increase in tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum imports, doubling the previous rate from 25% to 50%. This decision, effective immediately, comes as retaliation for Ontario Premier Doug Ford's recent move to impose a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to around 1.5 million American households across states like New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. Trump made the announcement on his social media platform, Truth Social, stating that Ontario's tariff on U.S. electricity imports left him with no choice but to take action. Based on Ontario, Canada placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the United States, I have instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% on all steel and aluminum coming into the United States from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world, Trump wrote. He made it clear that these new tariffs would go into effect on March 12. Trump further demanded that Canada immediately remove what he called anti-American farmer tariffs on U.S. dairy products, which currently range from 250% to 390%. Labeling these tariffs as outrageous, Trump warned that failure to comply would result in further economic actions. He stated his intention to declare a national emergency concerning electricity in the affected U.S. regions, arguing that it would allow the U.S. government to take swift measures to counteract what he described as Canada's abusive threat. Beyond tariffs on steel and aluminum, Trump also issued a stark warning regarding the Canadian auto industry. If other egregious tariffs imposed by Canada were not removed, he vowed to substantially increase tariffs on Canadian cars imported into the U.S. starting April 2. He claimed such a move would effectively shut down the automobile manufacturing business in Canada, arguing that those same cars could be produced in the U.S. instead. In his post, Trump also criticized Canada's defense spending, asserting that the country contributes very little to its own national security while heavily relying on the U.S. for military protection. He claimed that American taxpayers subsidize Canada's defense at a cost of over $200 billion per year and questioned why this arrangement should continue. In a controversial remark, Trump suggested that the best solution would be for Canada to become the 51st U.S. state, eliminating all trade barriers and bringing economic and military benefits to both nations. This would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear, Trump wrote. Canadians' taxes would be very substantially reduced. They will be more secure militarily and otherwise than ever before. He went on to say that the US and Canada together would form the safest and most beautiful nation anywhere in the world, and that Canada's national anthem, O Canada, would still be played, this time as part of the greatest nation the world has ever seen. Trump did not stop there. In another post, he questioned why the U.S. should allow another country to supply electricity to any part of America, even a small region. He accused Canada of using electricity as a bargaining chip and threat against innocent people, warning that the financial consequences would be severe. They will pay a financial price for this so big that it will be read about in history books for many years to come, he wrote. The announcement sent immediate shockwaves through financial markets. U.S. steel and aluminum prices surged in response to the tariffs, while the S&P 500 index dropped by 0.8%, reflecting investor concerns about rising trade tensions. Economists warned that a prolonged trade dispute between the two countries could have significant economic consequences, especially for industries that depend on cross-border trade. Ontario Premier Doug Ford quickly responded, attributing the stock market downturn to Trump's trade policies rather than Canada's electricity tariff. He called on Trump to reconsider his decision, arguing that retaliatory measures would only harm both American and Canadian businesses. Ford defended the electricity surcharge, stating that it was necessary to protect Ontario's interests. He warned that if the dispute escalated, Ontario would not rule out more drastic actions, including the complete halt of electricity exports to the affected U.S. states. Meanwhile, the Canadian province of British Columbia took a strong stance against Trump's tariffs. BC Premier David Eby announced that his government was preparing countermeasures, including new legislation that would impose tolls on commercial vehicles traveling through the province en route to Alaska. The goal, according to Eby, was to send a clear message not only to Trump but also to Republican congressional representatives and the governor of Alaska. The proposed legislation would also mandate that low-carbon fuel additives for gasoline and diesel be sourced domestically, reducing Canada's dependence on the U.S. market. Furthermore, the bill would provide new tools for the province to dismantle internal trade barriers, ensuring that British Columbia strengthens its economic resilience. Premier Eby emphasized that Canada would not back down in the face of Trump's aggressive trade moves. "We will not tolerate these ongoing threats and uncertainties. We are standing up for Canadians," he declared. Although the tolls on U.S. commercial vehicles wouldn't take effect immediately and would only impact a limited number of trucks, the move signaled a growing trade standoff between Canada and the U.S. The White House has launched a trade war we never wanted, and we must respond decisively, Eby stated. He also warned that these initial countermeasures were only the beginning and that British Columbia was preparing additional steps to protect its economy. In the coming weeks, the BC government plans to introduce legislation that would further shield local businesses from the impact of Trump's tariffs. Among the proposed measures are eliminating internal trade barriers within Canada, ensuring greater use of Canadian-made fuel additives, and placing fees on U.S. commercial vehicles that rely on BC infrastructure to access Alaska. These tariffs are a significant misstep by Trump's administration, harming families and businesses on both sides of the border, Premier Eby said. "Our government will fight for British Columbians at every turn, and every option remains on the table." As an immediate countermeasure, the BC government has instructed its liquor distribution branch to stop purchasing American liquor from certain states, effectively removing those brands from public liquor store shelves. Additionally, BC government agencies and Crown corporations have been directed to prioritize Canadian goods and services over U.S. imports. These actions are part of a broader Team Canada strategy, which includes the federal government's 25% tariffs on $55 billion worth of U.S. imports, as well as countermeasures from other provinces aimed at reducing reliance on American trade. British Columbia is also actively pursuing new international markets and accelerating approvals for major investment projects, with an estimated $20 billion in upcoming infrastructure spending expected to create around 8,000 jobs, particularly in rural and remote areas. To ensure a coordinated response, Premier Eby has established a trade and economic security task force consisting of business leaders, labor representatives, and Indigenous community leaders. Additionally, a new agriculture and food economy task force will work on securing BC's food supply, while a Softwood Advisory Council will develop diplomatic and trade strategies to address the ongoing softwood lumber dispute with the U.S. With these decisive actions, British Columbia aims to protect its economy, workforce, and businesses while strengthening its long-term economic independence. As Canada pushes back against Trump's tariffs, the federal government and provincial leaders are taking significant steps to safeguard Canadian industries. While trade tensions continue to escalate, one thing is clear: Canada is prepared to fight back.